I didn't even know. Have you played Champions League?
Never. I looked at Pat's face and went, oh.
Oh, you were thinking, what going to come back with?
Nothing. Hello and welcome to Shirt Swap with me, Darren Bent, a show where I chat to current and former players about the top 3 shirts they swapped through throughout their career. And today, I'm joined by the former Liverpool and England midfielder and my own former teammate, Danny Murphy. So I heard a rumour that you've got Zinedine Zidane shirt from the '98 World Cup final.
Yes, well, Gerard Houllier was my manager at Liverpool, as you know, and he had a major influence and friendship with Zidane from his days in France, and kept in touch with him over the years. And one day I've gone into the office. It was after I'd been called to the England squad. So I'd been on a journey with Houllier at Liverpool, you know, from being sent back out on loan to Crewe, coming back, getting in the first team, being a regular, winning some trophy, getting in the England squad. And he called me in the office one day, and it was a plastic bag, like a Co-op, Tesco or something. And he just threw it on the desk and said, "That's for you." You know, I was like, you know, you just think, what's going on? And I pulled out the shirt, it was Zidane, and it's got the badge on, World Cup, you know, final, blah, blah, blah. And he said, "Oh, you know, Zinedine gave me this after the final. But, you know, I want to give it to you." You know, and you're in a bit of shock.
Yeah.
So he said, "I've spoke to him, it's fine. I'm going to give it to you, and it's reward for the journey you've been on." And what he explained was that he kind of went on a journey with Zidane. He wasn't comparing me to Zidane, by the way.
That was my next question.
Let's get that out of the way. But it was just kind of a reward from him to give me something to say, well done.
Yeah. And
to be honest, I'm not a big one for shirts. That one kind of took me back a bit because of the gesture.
Yeah. And
obviously the importance of the shirt. And you know what it's like in finals, you probably get 3 or 4 shirts, whether he actually worn it or not. But it's the fact that he thought, "I'm going to give you that to reward you for what I did." So yeah, I've got it. It's funnily enough, I've had some brilliant shirts over time, and I'm not one for putting them all about. I just keep them safe, tucked out of the way. So if anyone wants to come around my house and steal them, it's not there.
So sadly, we haven't got that shirt today, but there's a big Italian theme running through today's show. So let's start with shirt number 3. Right, so Dan, let's start with the shirt itself. I mean, when I look at the shirt, I think to myself, you've got to be in good condition to be able to wear this shirt.
Well, you did promise earlier off air that you're going to put it on later for them.
I mean, but listen, Pirlo, one of the absolute greats. I mean, what was it like coming up against him?
Well, I didn't know much about him at the time. And for some strange reason, Howard Wilkinson was our manager, and he put me in he decided to play me holding midfielder, which is where I finished my career. I think he wanted me to get on the ball and try and play. And Pirlo was playing as a 10, obviously. But obviously he ended up as a holding midfielder, and most of his success came as a holding midfielder. But when he played as a 10, he wasn't the quickest, but within 10 minutes, you know you're up against someone who has got that wonderful quality.
Yeah.
Every time I looked around, I was, where is he? You know, they just kept finding him with the ball, and he was 2-footed. I noticed straight away, didn't have a problem going either way, which is a problem when you're defending against someone, isn't it? Because you want to show them on one foot. Yeah. Anyway, he was brilliant. He dominated the game, really, if I'm honest. And we had some good players. But after the game, when we swapped shirts, and we swapped it, back then it was more who you come up against on the pitch, not, oh, I want his shirt. It was just a mutual respect. We'd had a tussle, we'd had a good game, he got the better, he was the best player. Shook his hand, swapped shirts. And then I always remember saying to people, I played against this lad, under 21s, Italy. Wait till you see him. So I thought, I'll keep that. You know, because sometimes you get shirts just disappear over the years. You know what it's like. You have a move of house, or you give them to your kids, or whatever. Yeah. So I'll keep that one. And I was right. My judgment was right, because he went on to be a wonderful player, didn't he?
I mean, who was playing for England that day in that 21 squad? Because there were some good players. I mean, looking at it, I think Frank Lampard played. Obviously, a good friend of yours, Franny Jeffers.
Franny Jeffers, one of our old teammates. Yeah. Lamps, yeah. I mean, we had loads of good players back then, but we didn't play together very often. That team was kind of put together. But Franny was probably our main threat then. He had great movement, brilliant finisher. I mean, you were with him at Charlton, you know what a great player he didn't fulfil his potential, did he, really? Yeah. But on the day, no, we weren't good enough. We just ran around trying to get after them. They just popped us to death.
Now, in terms of, I mean, listen, Liverpool, when I think of you obviously play at Liverpool, Xabi Alonso, when I think of Pirlo, I put them two in the same kind of position in terms of technique as well. Which one was better?
Very hard to say. I mean, probably Alonso for me was a bit more varied in his. He could mix it up physically. You know, he could rough you up. He could have a tackle. He'd get his foot in. He had a bit of nastiness about him. Pirlo was pure technique.
Yeah.
Didn't want to get involved in the physical stuff. So I'd probably just give it Alonso.
So that's a really strong start from Danny. So let's see what's number 2. So on to shirt number 2. Obviously the great man Cafu. We'll start with the shirt again itself. Awful colours. A bit baggy.
You could carry it.
But
do you know what that badge means?
Champions League?
I don't know. I didn't know if you did. Anyway.
Right, listen. You're better than that. You are better than that.
Anyway, go on.
So listen. So you didn't play against Cafu in either of the games, but how did you end up with this shirt?
Well, we played against Roma a few times, UEFA Cup, Champions League, so I was aware he was about, and you know, and you just think, because sometimes for Liverpool, I played on the left, sometimes I played on the right, sometimes in the middle.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously when I was playing on the left for a while, I was thinking, if I come up against Cafu, what an experience that would be. So I was kind of one of the few times I want to try and get his shirt. And he wasn't playing for whatever reason. And to be honest, it was just a case of pulling him, you know, in the tunnel and saying, listen, can you get me a shirt? And funnily enough, I've met him since stopped playing a couple of times and had a little joke about it, you know, like being a bit of a fan.
Yeah.
But he's a lovely fella. Brazilian superstar, won the World Cup, somebody I was looking up to and idolising a little bit, thinking he's the best right back I've ever seen, before I really got to that level.
Yeah.
And you know, when you come up against some players and you think you're mentally in a good place where you think, I'm as good, you know, I'm deserved to be here.
Yeah.
But he was one of them, even when he was walking around the place in the tunnel and the chain, you know, when you see someone, you kind of think, oh my God, Cafu. Did it with Zidane when I first played. I saw Zidane and I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Because they're players that you really look up to.
Yeah.
And the longevity he had in his career, arguably the best right back I've ever seen.
I mean, did you actually ever get to play against him? And really, for maybe some of our younger viewers, I mean, how good was he? I mean, you've touched on it and said he's one of the best you've ever seen.
No, I didn't, unfortunately. He had that amazing mix of being brilliant going forward, tight control, go past people, shoot, cross, flick round players like a midfield, you know. But when he defended one-on-one, powerful, quick. So a mix of Kyle Walker and Trent Alexander-Arnold. Wow. And that was on a bad day.
Wow, so in your opinion, he's probably arguably the greatest.
He's up there. I can't remember seeing two. I mean, I would have liked that. You know, when you play against someone, you got that one-on-one kind of feel it, see it, breathe it. Didn't get that opportunity, but yeah, from everything I saw, he was one of the best we've ever seen.
And in this Roma team, I mean, you talk about two strikers. I mean, one of them I idolised in Batistuta, but him and Totti up front, I mean, how good were they?
Well, Totti had more experience playing against than Batistuta. Totti was a bit like Pirlo in terms of that beautiful touch and technical ability. You know, always having a bit more sharpness because he was a forward. Totti was a whinger, moaner. You know, like always demanding of other players, and he'd want confrontation all the time. He didn't like getting after you. He always want to fight. He's a winner.
Yeah.
But another wonderful player who, when you think actually, for someone who wasn't the quickest or the biggest, to have the career and score the goals he had, Totti. I feel blessed actually. You know, talking sometimes like this about memories, some of the players' names I'm talking about playing against. It's like, it's all a bit surreal, isn't it, really?
Well, as I said, Batistuta and Totti, I mean, two absolute greats. But for Liverpool, you had Owen and Heskey. I mean, in your opinion, which two's better? But them two together were brilliant. And in my opinion, Heskey doesn't get the credit he deserves.
He doesn't. Emil was a phenomenal player, but I wasn't just lucky enough to play with Owen and Heskey. I mean, I played with Fowler, Lippmann.
Wow.
You know,
Bent,
Berbatov, Keane. No, so many. You're right.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, we played Roma at home one day when I think Jari Lippmann scored at Anfield. It was Houlier's first game back after his heart attack, and it was a memory that lived with me for a long, long time. That Roma game. It wasn't this kit. It was the different one. And they came to our place with a star-studded side, and we needed to beat them by 2 clear goals to go through the group stage of the Champions League.
Yeah.
And the fans had got whisper that Houllier was coming back. He still wasn't quite himself, but he walked in and the stadium, it was just emotion, passion, everything you could ever experience in one evening. And I have to say, we beat them 2-0. Heskey scored. Brilliant he was that night. Lippmann played. that evening, some of the big name players that Roma had, you could see them they were intimidating.
Yeah.
We ran over them because of the supporters. And that Liverpool-Roma game was probably one of the few games I remember vividly in my memory, from my career.
I mean, Battersby for me was one of my heroes. I always think about the goal against Arsenal, the goal against United, pace, power. I mean, his goal scoring record. I felt like when I used to watch the old Football Gazette on a Sunday afternoon with James Richardson, he'd score a golden boot every season. And I would have loved to see him come over to the Premier League and play, but he didn't. But in terms of Italian football back then, he was, for me, I think he's one of the very best strikers that's ever been anyway. Listen, both choices have been absolutely superb, but what could be shirt number one? Number one, Rui Costa, one of the greats. I mean, there's no shirt, there's no name on the shirt.
I'll explain that, his name's here. To Danny, all the best, Rui.
I mean, how did you end up? I mean, first of all, the shirt is really baggy. It's massive. The other two.
He's big though.
He is big.
Yeah.
Massive. How did you end up with this shirt?
Well, firstly, for those of you who don't know Rui Costa, again, internet's there for a reason.
Yeah.
This is poetry in motion, this guy. This is, I don't know, could you compare him to like a Jack Grealish?
Do you know what?
A bit more finesse.
Obviously, he's better than Jack. But you know what? I thought Jack, just for the simple reason, he was doing the socks before, way back in the day.
So Bentley talked earlier about the Italian telly, James Richardson, Gazzetta.
Yeah.
Rui Costa, that's where I first started seeing him. Saw him for Portugal, Destroy England. Fiorentina, he was brilliant for years. Baggio ended up taking over from him a little bit. But Rui Costa it's like watching somebody doing things that you want to be able to do.
Yeah.
Just go past people effortlessly. Just a superb technician. But what happened was, we went out to a tournament in Amsterdam. We used to go there, I think we went there 2 or 3 years, played some great friendlies against top players. And Milan were there, but we weren't due to play against them. But in my head, I'm thinking, Rui Costa, oh my God, he was in the hotel.
Yeah.
You look at someone, you just think, look at him, he even looks great, he brush past him and live, smells great, all of it. And we had Abu Xavier playing for us.
Blonde hair and all that.
Yeah, Portuguese. And Rui Costa's Portuguese, from Portugal, obviously. So I said to Zabel, any chance? She said, yeah, he's a friend of mine, no problem. Get a call a bit later, come down to reception, I'm having a cup of tea with Rui. When you get the old nervous one. I was like, what? Look, get myself together. Gone down, what a lovely fella. He had the shirt, pen ready, signed it to me.
Good English or?
Yeah, perfect.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well, not perfect,
but yeah, of course.
10 minutes, 15 minutes, sat there chatting with him, just a normal, lovely fella, And I was just trying to be cool, make out I wasn't the biggest fan in the world, but so I didn't get to play against him. But when I talked before about players being bigger in your head when you're younger, than when you get some confidence when you're a bit older. And Rui Costa, just being around him and having a cup of tea or coffee, they were all posh with the lattes back then. I was a cup of tea. I was just so pleased to be around, meet him and get the shirt. And obviously the fact that he signed it personally always means a little bit more. It doesn't matter that it's not got his name on because it was personal. Yeah. So I met him, got the shirt, really nice gesture. And I've always talked about, when I talk to my boy about players from the past, when I mention someone like Rui Costa, who's that? It's when you love the game and you know your history, you know your players. Have a look at Rui Costa.
I mean, you look at that AC Milan team there, you talk about Rui Costa, Pirlo, Gattuso, Shevchenko, Inzaghi, Albertini, and obviously the great Maldini. I mean, that team is one of the very best.
They had a spell, didn't they, where they just kept producing brilliant teams, winning loads of Champions Leagues. Shevchenko was obviously a wonderful forward for them, someone you probably admired. He scored goals non-stop, and of course that Milan team. Well, I left the year Milan played Liverpool in Istanbul when Liverpool did the comeback, and Shevchenko played in that one. But
and I missed the pen, didn't he?
Yeah, tried the little dig, didn't he? The Milan kit for me was probably one of the most iconic kits from growing up.
Yeah.
Because they had that team of Desai, mid-90s, and all the players you mentioned. You just used to look at them and think, wow, what a team.
Danny, great shirts, great stories, great memories, and obviously great players. So really appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on.
No problem.
Thanks for watching Shirt Swap with me, Darren Ben. Make sure you hit like and subscribe.